Quick, we must run away from these horrible, horrible people. They've got big tubes and they look a bit weird. Oh, actually, they're all right. Don't worry about it, Captain. Let's all beam down. It's really nice. Captain, I think Sulu may have been infected with some kind of cult virus. Yes, Spock, I agree. But we should beam down nevertheless. In fact, let's take almost an entire command team. That does not seem logical, Captain. You do not seem logical. Hello and welcome to another episode of TrekHammer, where we're talking about every single episode of Star Trek from the beginning right through to the modern episodes. Today we're talking about Return of the Archons from the original series. Now this is an interesting one because when I went into it, I actually watched this twice. Once by myself so I could really get into the lore of it and try and spot a load of themes. And then a second time with a couple of friends, because some of them like more modern Trek, the stuff in the 90s, but specifically don't tend to watch the original series, and I wanted their take on it. And what I found was very interesting. First of all, this really doesn't feel like your average Star Trek episode or what you would expect from an average Star Trek episode if you don't watch the original series a lot. My friends, they all thought, this feels more like the Twilight Zone than it does an episode of Star Trek, and it was very much not what they expected from the campy ideas they've got of original Trek. So they were really impressed. I thought that was important because a lot of what we expect Star Trek to be from the original series is actually due to cultural osmosis of parodies of Star Trek, not what Star Trek actually is. And it's another example where we find that the idea of, oh, I'm really, really logical, and oh, I'm really, really action-based and talk in a strange way. None of that's true in the majority of episodes. So what we've got here is a very interesting story. The Enterprise is revisiting a planet where the USS Archon disappeared. So that's really cool. They're looking into something that's happened. It turns out it's 100 years, but you know these things take time to get back to Starfleet Command. You know you gotta pack a lunch and all that. It takes a bit of time. So they've gone and had a look at this place, and their information is massively out of date. The first thing that Sulu does when he gets beamed back up at the start of the episode is tell the science and historian people on board that their information about what the clothes of the natives are like is wrong, completely wrong. They sent them down in weird outfits which they don't wear anymore. It looks more like late 18th century American fashions. So I thought that was cool. Everything's not right. None of what the people going down to the planet were expecting is happening. Then Sulu starts to feel weird and appears to be under the influence of something. He says everything is perfect, the entire place is wonderful, which does not really fit with the emergency transport message that he sent just before he beamed up and told everyone that everything was all right. Bit weird. So Kirk decides that, I'd best take the majority of my command team back down to the planet. I've never really fit with this idea of the commanding officer and a load of people beaming down to the planet and getting in trouble. You're taking the most experienced people and putting them onto danger and leaving the least experienced people running the ship. Never a good idea. But that's what happens in Star Trek, so that's just what we've got. They all beam down, and everyone seems incredibly pleasant. They meet a guy that looks... well, he looks dodgy. I think he's made up to look weird and not quite right, and he speaks in a way that is weird and not quite right. And the actor really nails that, because he's being very, very pleasant, but there's kind of an underlying something's not right here. Visually, it's putting that across, and audibly, it's doing that as well. So I like that. He says, oh, are you here for the festival? You better be careful, because it's almost the red hour. And when the red hour hits, all of the pleasant people that are around start to riot instantly. It's like, what's going on here? This is another visual demonstration that, yeah, it seems all right on the surface, and then all of a sudden there's something wrong. So Kirk and his crew escaped to where this guy, before he went insane, told him to go and find some rest. They go in there, and there's older guys, and they seem perfectly normal. So whatever's going on, out there is madness, in here is okay. What's happening? Is it just something that the younger people do, or is it something that they're protected from in that building? We don't know yet, but it's very interesting. And yet, again, there's a level of menace, because one of the older guys is clearly not happy that these people aren't out rioting in the Red Hour. So, he's polite to a certain extent, and then he's not polite. Again, the level of underlying threat. Really cool, keeping the tension up. No one really knows what's going on yet, especially not the captain and his crew. So they get some place to rest, and Kirk looks out the window at a complete riot going on. Then they get introduced to the idea that these people might be Archons. Who are the Archons? Well, Kirk and them, they must be Archons, because they're not under the influence of Landrew. Who's Landrew? This is new information. They start talking to some of the guys that weren't affected during the Red Hour, and it turns out that Landrew basically controls everything, and if you are not of the body, i.e. with Landrew, or under his influence, then you must be purged. Interesting idea. Then, the guy that was aggressive toward them for not purging during the Red Hour, or whatever the hell is going on. It does feel like the purge, but purging during the Red Hour or whatever's going on, he brings in some enforcers who basically enforce Landrew's will, and points out that some of these people are not of the body. So Kirk gets an order from them and just says, nah. They don't know what to do with that. It looks a little bit weird. Essentially, these enforcers crash, as if you've crashed a computer, or you've given it information it can't process and it's stuck. So Kirk and them leave. They go off and they start trying to find out who Landrew is and how do they get in contact with him. Very interesting. Then everyone in the street who has been very polite to them, all of a sudden they're not polite. They've noticed these gentlemen are not of the body. So they've got to escape. They get to a safe house. Turns out it's not that safe. They do eventually talk to Landrew at the safe house, and then people turn up and capture a few of them. In fact, all of them. They take McCoy away. He gets processed. He ends up looking and acting like Sulu. He's very happy. He's of the body. Good evening and all of that. So, it's not just the natives that can be put under Landrew's influence, it's everyone. Landrew says that they're going to become of the body. They're all going to be absorbed. And at this point, even the people that were watching with me, my friends, who are familiar with modern Star Trek, started agreeing with me at the idea that this is an original series version of the Borg. I am not kidding with this. The way it all works, they're brought into processing, they become one with Landrew, and they all work toward a common goal. They're the Borg, but just in a different name, and without the weird cybernetic implants, of course, but it's essentially the same thing. It's a body snatchers style instead of a zombie infestation style. It's very interesting, though. It's very cool. So, obviously, Kirk then gets taken away for processing. But it turns out that one of the guys that they were with that led them to the hideout has a friend in the processing area, and he helps Kirk not get processed, but to be able to blend in. So that's what happens, and Spock, he gets the same thing. After that, well, obviously now, they need to find out what this Landrew guy's up to, where he is, and all of that. So they've basically forced these guys who are trying to live out their lives peacefully and not get in the way of Landrew. They force them to show them where Landrew is. They go in to this room where they confer with Landrew. But Landrew's not there. He's a projection, just like he was earlier on when he was talking to them. And Spock is quite obviously processing all of this. Says, this doesn't seem right. It's not like he's a normal person. It's not like he's a human being. So what's going on? And then Kirk and them decide, well, here's a wall that doesn't look like the rest of the room. Let's shoot it. Maybe Landrew's behind it. Landrew is behind it. But Landrew's dead. Landrew's a computer. A personality uploaded into a computer that is running this entire society. No wonder that the enforcers couldn't process new information properly. No wonder Landrew isn't responding properly as they would expect a person to do, because Landrew is no longer there. So what we've got here is a Roger Corby thing. Again, it's a man who was there, but no longer is, and it's essentially running on autopilot based on his personality at the time of his death. So it's a computer that can't quite be human, but thinks it is, that kind of thing. And this is where the show goes from being interesting to being excellent, because Kirk is able to talk this computer into shutting down and overriding itself. Not by what would often happen in 60s, 70s, and even 80s weird sci-fi, where they'd be, oh, well, I'm going to give you some information and it's not going to work for you, so blah, 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 and then spiel a load of nonsense, garbled nonsense that's supposed to be some kind of programming language. You see it all the time. Shows like Doctor Who did it, shows all over the world do it.
Does not compute. Does not compute.
A programmer will blurt out random stuff that sounds like technobabble in order to confuse a computer and cause it to shut down. We don't get that here. Kirk uses his brain and actually manages to give a logical argument to this computer about why what it's doing is undermining its own goals. So you are presenting all of these arguments for what you want to achieve, computer, but all of your actions are not achieving any of that. You are in fact standing in your own way of trying to achieve your goals. So isn't it a good idea if you stopped doing that and shut down so that your ideas can bear fruit? And it works because it's a logical argument. And this is why I'm saying that the situation that we have with what people think of Star Trek isn't what we actually get from Star Trek. Kirk is not the rugged action hero who beats up the alien and kisses the girl. Kirk is a thinking man who outsmarts his opponents rather than beats them up at any opportunity that he can. He does that here. It's brilliantly done. And once again, it shows that the walking book, the book on legs, as we got in Where No Man Has Gone Before, is still there. Kirk is still the thinking captain. And it's brilliantly done. He argues the computer down, it breaks, and then we get the perfect thing. The guy that helped them find Landrew, the guy that didn't really want to, he just wanted to, live his life free from Landrew, he then asks, well, what are we supposed to do now? Because Kirk has just destroyed their entire society. And Kirk says, you'll figure it out. And then he leaves a load of psychologists and people who can help rebuild the society. He leaves them behind on the planet with a note to come back sent to Starfleet. Basically, this planet needs help. Go and help. Which is brilliant. So we actually get some follow-through on the events of the episode. It's so well done. Even the people that I was watching it with who don't normally watch Star Trek loved this episode because it's so well done. I really enjoyed it. I think it's one of the best Star Trek episodes that you can watch from the original series, and I have absolutely no qualms in giving Return of the Archons 10 out of 10. So please, Warp Factor 10, Mr. Sulu. But what did you think? Do you think I've been a little too over-generous on this one? Do you think that I've missed something? Please do let me know what your comments are in the comment section down below. Let's have a conversation about Star Trek. Always love doing that with you guys because we like Star Trek. Let's have a chat about it. I really like that part. But anyway, that's all we got time for today. So thank you so much for watching this. I hope you have enjoyed it. And if you have, remember to click that like button, share it with your friends so that they'll know a good Star Trek episode when they see it. And do subscribe for future videos because there will be more in the future. But until next time, I've been Zoe Kirk Robinson. You've been watching TrekHammer. Live long and prosper. And I'll see you next time. If you like the show, please consider supporting me on Patreon. It really does help create future videos. That's patreon.com/Zoe Kirk Robinson. And I've got an extra special thanks going out to Chief89, Sam Yates, Retro Mickey82, Mo Henry, and George Botterini. Thank you so much, guys.